Randall Woodfield. In 1974, the Green Bay Packers drafted wide receiver Randall Woodfield in the 17th round, hoping he might develop into a hidden gem. He never made the roster, but what happened after football stunned the nation. Woodfield began a violent spree along the West Coast, becoming known as the I-5 killer. He was eventually linked to dozens of crimes, and though convicted of only one, authorities suspected him in more than 40 others. His reign of terror turned him from a forgotten draft pick into one of the darkest figures ever associated with the NFL. To this day, his name is rarely mentioned in football conversations, but when it is, it's for reasons far removed from the game. Woodfield is now serving multiple life sentences in Oregon, a grim reminder that sometimes the NFL's strangest stories unfold off the field in ways no one could ever predict. Chuck Hughes. On October 24th, 1971, Detroit Lions receiver Chuck Hughes lined up for a play against the Chicago Bears. Moments later, he collapsed to the turf and never got back up. At first, teammates thought he was cramping, but panic spread as medics rushed to his side. Hughes had suffered a massive heart attack, later revealed to be caused by undiagnosed arterial disease. Despite desperate efforts to save him, he was pronounced dead at just 28 years old. Shockingly, the game resumed after his body was taken off the field, a moment almost unthinkable today. He remains the only NFL player to die during a game. His number 85 was quietly retired by the Lions, and the sight of Bears linebacker Dick Butkus frantically signaling for help is forever etched in league history. Hughes' death stands as one of football's most haunting tragedies, a reminder of its unpredictably brutal nature. O.J. Murdoch. O.J. Murdoch's football dreams ended in heartbreaking fashion. After shining at Fort Hays State, he signed with the Tennessee Titans in 2011. His rookie season was wiped out by injury, but the team brought him back for another chance. However, when camp opened the following summer, Murdoch never showed up. Days later, police in Tampa discovered him inside his car at the very high school where he once starred. Authorities revealed he had taken his own life at just 25 years old. Teammates were blindsided, as there had been no public signs of distress. His story revealed the silent struggles some players face away from the spotlight. Murdoch's passing devastated those who believed he still had untapped potential, but it also exposed the league's ongoing challenge in addressing player mental health. It was another sobering reminder that even young athletes with bright futures may be fighting hidden battles. Barry Bennett. Barry Bennett enjoyed an 11-year NFL career as a respected defensive lineman before settling into quiet retirement in Minnesota. But in 2019, his story took a horrifying turn when he and his wife were found murdered inside their home. Investigators quickly focused on their 22-year-old son, Dylan, who fled the state after the killings. Authorities later discovered Barry had previously warned police that his son had expressed violent thoughts about harming his parents. Days later, Dylan was captured in Mexico and extradited back to the United States to face murder charges. The brutal case shocked former teammates and the community, as Bennett had been known as a kind man who gave back after football. His violent death highlighted how even those who survived the brutality of the NFL can fall victim to personal tragedies far more chilling than anything they faced on the field. And yet, the story only worsened. Bryan Pata. In 2006, Bryan Pata looked destined for NFL success. The University of Miami defensive lineman was projected as a mid-round draft pick and had already declared for the draft. But one November evening, hours after practice, he was shot outside his Miami apartment complex. For 15 years, the case remained unsolved, with speculation swirling but no arrests. Then, in 2021, investigators charged former teammate Rashawn Jones, alleging simmering conflicts and personal grudges had led to the crime. The revelation stunned the Miami football community, reopening old wounds and sparking debates about jealousy, rivalry, and betrayal within college athletics. While Jones awaits trial, the murder technically remains unresolved in court, leaving friends and family without closure. Pata's death robbed the NFL of a promising talent and left a mystery that still captivates fans today. But that's not all, because the next story shows an even darker collapse from inside the league. Kevin Allen. Kevin Allen entered the NFL with high expectations when the Philadelphia Eagles drafted him 9th overall in 1985. But what unfolded became one of the league's most notorious cautionary tales. Allen struggled on the field immediately, drawing harsh criticism from coach Buddy Ryan, who bluntly said he had no athletic skills. Off the field, things deteriorated further. Allen failed drug tests, was suspended for cocaine use, and then became embroiled in an even darker legal scandal that led to prison time. He attempted a comeback years later in the World League, but his name had already been cemented as one of the NFL's all-time busts. His story is often remembered not just for poor performance, but for how quickly bad choices derailed his career. Allen's fall remains a reminder of how pressure, drugs, and bad decisions can turn top prospects into cautionary examples. And the next case proves just that. Johnny Jolly. Johnny Jolly looked like a cornerstone for the Green Bay Packers defensive line after being drafted in 2006. By 2009, he was a key starter, known for clogging running lanes and bringing toughness to the defense. But behind the scenes, he struggled with a serious codeine addiction, often mixed into a concoction called Purple Drink. In 2008, he was arrested in Houston for possession of over 200 grams, and just 2 years later, police caught him with over 600 grams, enough for felony distribution charges. The NFL suspended him indefinitely, and in 2011, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison. After serving nearly 2, Jolly made an improbable return to the Packers in 2013, appearing in 8 games before a neck injury ended his career for good. His brief comeback was inspiring, but his story is still defined by wasted potential, drug abuse, and the dangers of addiction in sports. Davone Bess. Davone Bess carved out a strong 6-year NFL career after going undrafted in 2008, catching more than 300 passes as a reliable slot receiver. But after football, his life spiraled into chaos. In 2014, Bess made headlines for bizarre incidents, including stripping his shirt off at an airport and shouting at police. Months later, he posted disturbing images online before barricading himself inside his car during a tense police standoff. Officers eventually took him into custody, but the alarming episodes raised serious concerns about his mental health. Friends and former teammates expressed sadness at the sudden collapse of a once inspiring story. Bess has since vanished from public life, with little known about his current state. His downfall showed how quickly stability can unravel when the mental toll of professional sports goes unaddressed. But first, only cool people are subscribed to this channel, so hit that subscribe button before we go any further. Mike Caussin. Mike Caussin's football career was relatively quiet, bouncing between teams from 2010 to 2015, but his personal life made national headlines. After marrying actress and singer Jana Kramer, Caussin revealed he had been battling sex addiction, admitting to cheating with multiple women. The couple's struggles played out publicly, with rehab stints, relapses, and therapy sessions turned into tabloid drama. In 2021, Kramer filed for divorce, citing repeated infidelity and emotional abuse, and Caussin was later arrested for violating a protective order she filed. Their turbulent marriage became a cautionary tale of how fame, addiction, and personal demons can collide. While his NFL career never left much of a mark, his off-field scandals became a lasting part of his public image. For many, Caussin is remembered less as a football player and more as an example of how private struggles can spiral into public disasters. Tony Washington was a talented offensive lineman at Abilene Christian, praised for his size, power, and technical skill. But as the 2010 draft approached, teams were forced to weigh more than game film. At 16, Washington had been convicted of a controversial offense involving a younger sibling. Though nonviolent, the case required him to register under state laws and cast a long shadow over his career. Washington was open with teams about his past, and despite the stigma, he was drafted and given a shot. However, the whispers and public scrutiny followed him, limiting his opportunities and derailing his chance to thrive in the NFL. His story highlights how past mistakes, even when legally resolved, can resurface in ways that define reputations and opportunities. Washington's tale remains one of the most unusual in draft history, sparking debate about second chances, redemption, and the fine line between talent and off-field baggage. Nate Webster. Nate Webster built a reputation as a hard-hitting linebacker during stints with the Bengals and Broncos, but his post-football life collapsed in disturbing fashion. In 2012, Webster was convicted on multiple charges stemming from a relationship with a teenager, the daughter of a former assistant coach. Prosecutors detailed how he used manipulation and intimidation, and the case ended with a 12-year prison sentence. The shocking revelations erased any respect he had earned on the field, transforming him into another NFL cautionary tale. His downfall showed the devastating consequences of abusing trust and authority, and the trial's grim details left fans stunned that a once beloved player could fall so far. Webster's story is now remembered not for football achievements, but for criminal conduct, a reminder of how quickly reputations can disintegrate when off-field actions betray public trust. But the next story is even more elaborate, involving a high-stakes federal sting. Jimmy Hitchcock. Jimmy Hitchcock had once been a reliable NFL cornerback, but after retiring, he found himself caught in Operation Wax House, a massive federal investigation into mortgage fraud. Prosecutors alleged that Hitchcock helped recruit participants and launder money, playing a role in a scheme that defrauded lenders of millions. When the case went public in 2009, many were stunned to see his name tied to such an elaborate plot. He ultimately pleaded guilty and was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison. For fans who remembered him as a tough defensive back, the contrast was jarring. His story illustrates how financial temptation and bad associations can pull former athletes into crime long after their playing days are over. Hitchcock's fall was less about violence and more about greed, but it still left a lasting scar on his legacy. And yet, the next case highlights a far more tragic outcome tied to the game itself. Tom McHale was never a star, but he was respected for his grit during 9 seasons as an offensive lineman, mostly with Tampa Bay. After retirement, years of collisions caught up with him, leading to chronic pain. To cope, he turned to prescription pills, which spiraled into dependency. In 2008, he was found dead after what was ruled an accidental mix of painkillers, alcohol, and cocaine. Later examinations revealed he suffered from CTE, the degenerative brain condition linked to repeated head trauma. His widow, Lisa, became a key advocate for awareness, working with the Concussion Legacy Foundation to push for change in football. McHale's story is both heartbreaking and pivotal, as it helped raise national attention on the hidden costs of the game. His passing wasn't just a personal tragedy, but part of the broader movement exposing the dangers players face long after their careers end. Jaguars Axe Incident. When Jack Del Rio became Jaguars head coach in 2003, he introduced a motivational slogan, "Keep chopping wood." To drive it home, he placed a tree stump and axe in the locker room, urging players to take symbolic swings. But the plan backfired when punter Chris Hansen misfired, sinking the axe into his own leg. The injury was severe enough to end his season, and the bizarre accident became an instant league-wide joke. For a struggling Jaguars team, losing a punter this way was surreal. The axe was quickly removed, but the story lives on as one of the NFL's strangest locker room mishaps. It showed how quickly even motivational tactics can spiral into embarrassing headlines. In the next case, it unfolded during the biggest stage of them all, when one player made a choice that forever tarnished his reputation. Eugene Robinson. Eugene Robinson was once praised for leadership, even winning the Bart Starr Award for character the night before Super Bowl 33. But hours later, he was arrested for soliciting an undercover officer in Miami. The timing was disastrous. The Falcons had a championship matchup against the Broncos the next day, but Robinson was in jail overnight before posting bail. He suited up, but played poorly, giving up big plays and a crushing loss. The scandal became one of the most infamous pre-Super Bowl distractions in history. Robinson returned the award, and though he enjoyed a respected career before the incident, his name remains tied to the shocking arrest. For fans, it was the ultimate example of how a single mistake can overshadow years of accomplishments. If you like this video, consider watching this next one, which YouTube thinks you're going to really love.